All right, ladies and gentlemen, and again, for those of you that are in line, you don't have to get out of line here. We want to support Pastor Pulowski, but we also want to have our next presenter. How many of you are familiar with the name Mel K? One more time, how many of you are familiar with the name Mel K? Ladies and gentlemen, please stand to your feet and say, hey, it's my pleasure to introduce to you, Mel K.
Oh my God, my people. Hi everyone, thank you for coming. Yay, look at this miracle. I'm crying. I can't even believe the miracle that we are all witnessing today and in our country and in our world. Thank you everyone who watches me. For those of you who don't, I want you to know I've brought some facts and truth today that you're gonna want to pay attention to, you're gonna want to do your own research, and you're gonna want to fight back with the best thing we got, which is God and truth. Because we the people, not just of the United States, but we the people of this planet are all fighting the same war and the same enemy. The problem is that they've convinced us, the same group of about 3,000 people in these bloodlines that go back, it is not a conspiracy theory, and I'm going to show you some proof today of exactly what happened here. But as I've been telling everyone, Germany may have lost World War II, but the Nazi Party did not. And unfortunately, as we're learning from medicine, science, math, but worst of all, our history has been rewritten by these demons. And they have brainwashed multiple generations into believing a story that is a full-on lie. And that lie, all roads of that lie, I'm sad to say, leads to something called the United Nations. And we have been told that this entity known as the United Nations was some kind of globalist, goodness sharing international community. Well, it is not. And I want everyone to make sure that they listen and do their own research, because when Donald Trump comes back and when we reclaim our country, we have to demand that the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, the IMF, the World Health Organization, NATO, and all of their demonic entities are excised from our planet. So, for those people who do not know, our own government has been controlled by a man named David Rockefeller for at least 50 years, if not centuries and bloodlines. He teams up with the debt slave masters, the Rothschilds, and their many, many bloodline families that have held our entire planet captive for many, many years, financing both sides of every war. And then what happens after war? They devastate a country, paying for both sides, always, all the way back to the French Revolution, honestly before that. And then the Rothschild bankers come in with the Rockefellers, and then the Rockefellers, you know, they are representatives, Soros and Kissinger, and all these people go into sovereign countries. And the next thing you know, they set up their central bank, they pay for the damage and destruction that they literally were behind, and they put that country into debt slavery, as we have been in since the Civil War, if not before that, but certainly since then. And what happens is, if you don't know, the Federal Reserve is a private bank. It is not an institution of we the people. It never has been. It is the same people. There's a book about Jekyll Island everyone should take a look at. Very important. The IRS is actually owned by the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve's overlords is the Bank of International Settlements in Switzerland, the same bank of the Nazis. And what I'm going to tell you right now is hard to believe, but they've controlled the education, UNESCO, demonic. They've controlled all information, all news, all history taught in schools, And, but I will read to you. What happened was, when they knew the Nazi Party, which is still the same goal, one world government, when they knew what was happening in Germany, David Rockefeller, Henry Kissinger, George Bush Sr. and his father, and a group of Luciferian Satanists, to tell you the truth, they did something called Operation Paperclip, Operation High Jump, and several other operations under the guise of, we're not sure what, but I will tell you, it was nothing good. And what they did was they brought them all to America and South America. And what they did was Rockefeller took the Third Reich to America and established the Fourth Reich right in New York City in front of our faces. And we believed that this was a force of good after World War II. No such thing. I will tell you a quote from David Rockefeller himself. He financed everything, including building the UN. He says, "Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists and conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure, a one-world government, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty and I'm proud of it." Okay, so that's the first bit of proof. And the second bit of proof that I have for you is at the United Nations, there's something called the Lucis Trust. The Lucis Trust is funded by a bunch of people, because it's a 501c3, of course, including Bill Gates, George Soros, Ted Turner, all the guys that consider themselves the good club. But as we are learning, Luciferians, everything they say is pretty much the opposite. Well, at the United Nations, there's something called the Lucis Trust Meditation Room. The Lucis Trust is the philosophical foundation for the United Nations. It is this woman, Alice Bailey, who actually was the disciple of a woman, Blavatsky, who was Hitler's occult spiritual guru, if you'd like to think that that's spiritual. Well, anyway, the UN has a philosophy, and you can find it, oddly enough, still at the UN in this meditation room. That, of course, has a big black cube in the middle and 1,000 points of light coming in the roof, if you recall George H.W. Bush talking about that. And the UN's philosophical backing is this 10-point strategy for the one world government. And those 10 points are: 1, take God and prayer out of the education system. 2, reduce parental authority over children. 3, destroy the traditional Christian family structure. 4, if sex is free, make abortion easy and legal. 5, make divorce easy and legal. Free people from the concept of marriage. 6, make homosexuality an alternative lifestyle. 7, debase art, make it run mad. 8, use media to promote and change mindset. 9, create an interfaith movement. 10, get governments to make all these laws and get the church to endorse these changes. This is the philosophy that David Rockefeller and Kissinger and all of these people put as the main backbone of the United Nations. And if you're not aware, the United Nations just stole our country. The United Nations is really who controls Joe Biden. And what people don't know is when George H.W. Bush and friends invited the CCP into the United Nations, which is bizarre because the CCP has no loyalty to anyone except for the CCP, which has no God because they're God. But once he invited them in, it went really, really the opposite direction of what anyone thought. They didn't think. They told us that now China's going to become more like us, right? Well, the CCP right now has a member on every single committee in the United Nations at the very top. So right now, the United Nations, in cahoots with the Chinese Communist Party, who both have the same goal of a one-world government, a socialist one-world government. And part of their plan, as people need to understand, again, going back to the originators of this whole thing, part of their plan was, as Rockefeller also states, we are on the verge of a global transformation. All we need is the right crisis, and nations will have to accept the New World Order. This was in 1994. And from that point on, they have been trying to create a virus. They were doing it before. We already know. And I don't know about you guys, but when I look at Dr. Fauci, who never treated one patient in his life, and is from bloodline families out of Switzerland as well, Dr. Fauci has actually funded 60 studies with the CCP. And when I look at Dr. Fauci, I think, so you're telling me that the head of the NIH used our taxpayer dollars to work with the Chinese Communist Party military bioweapons lab to create a virus that David Rockefeller has been tempting the world to dare him to do for decades, and he's not in prison for treason? This is a shock to the system. We had General Milley, who has been in cahoots with the CCP for 5 years. The man has committed obvious treason, and yet he's walking around proud. These people, they have no God. They have no shame. They are Luciferian Satanists. Don't let anyone fool you that they're this religion or that religion. Or they're not. They're not. They look at us as useless eaters. And documents that have come out over time list multiple things, but the biggest threat to these demons is a united we the people. And they fear we the people so much that the real goal of COVID, if you're not clear right now, was to completely wipe out the middle class. That's most of us, and this was worldwide. Why? Because it's the middle class that fights back. It's the middle class, all of us in this room, that are fighting back, and they are scared, and I am watching them panic, and it is great. And just for a little more for you to take out there with you to tell the people that we've been duped. This United Nations is a fraud. They're the one world government. They're no different. They're the same exact people that did that in Nazi Germany. And Kissinger himself said depopulation should be the highest priority of foreign policy towards the world. That's up to God, Henry Kissinger. It ain't up to you. And I will tell you, I grew up thinking, I'm sure a lot of you did too, that these were the good guys. We have been deceived. And it is up to us to say no more, have our facts, have our truth, and go out there. And I've been really looking into this lately more than ever, because it turns out that their entire plan for the New World Order is this close. And the one thing that got in the way of their Agenda 21 was Donald J. Trump. And for these people that pick apart this man, this one man, that literally looked at the facts that I'm telling you right now. He has fought these demons his whole life, but it went too far. And he teamed up with some amazing people that they're trying to convince you do not exist. They exist. They are on top of this. We are watching a sting operation, and I will tell you, the one thing will tell you is Donald Trump is one man, but every single one of us can take the lead that he did in our own lives, in our own worlds. I'm driving cross country, and what I see, and don't forget, it was Bush and Kissinger and Rockefeller and all the people that sent all our manufacturing overseas, mainly to the CCP. And when I drive across this country, we've gone from event to event, and everyone should go to as many as they can, because being around people like us and realizing, A, we're the majority, and B, God is on our side, you know? So let's let Trump and the White Hats, which I firmly believe is international, and I'll tell you why. Look at who of the international leaders are saying, we're not going to do your great reset, and we're not going to be involved with you anymore. They're not turning their backs on America, like you're seeing in the news. They're turning their backs on this demonic cabal. And what we need to do, because this is the most important thing, and this is why I follow General Flynn around the country wherever he goes, and I'm honored to, because he is telling us the path forward. Trump and the Patriots caught them all, okay? We know this. It's going to be coming out. Don't listen to the spin. It is proven, and we will prove it. But what we have to remember is, if they cheated on that level to Trump, then in every one of our counties, I don't care if you have 400 people or 12 million people, every single one of us is entitled to a county audit. And if they cheated with Trump, you have a sheriff, you have judges, you have school board members, you have city council members, you have congressmen and senators who also cheated. And if you are seeing demonic stuff like the 10 rules of the one world government, go look it up. Alice Bailey, United Nations, Lucis Trust, 10 rules to the one world government. If you're seeing that play out in your local community, you go down there and you demand an audit. And you get your friends to go down there. And you show up everywhere these people meet, and you start groups. My mother was so upset. She lives in Florida. She lives in an elderly community. Everyone around her seems brainwashed and deranged. She said, you know what, I'm going to start a We the People group in my community. And she put up a sign thinking, I don't know who's going to come. She even did it in our house, the first one. And 14 people showed up the first time. The word got around. Next time, 50 people showed up. Now they have 100 to 200 every meeting, and they get in groups, these grandparents, and they go down to these school board meetings, and they go down to these city council meetings, and they demand that we take our country back. If they can do it, every one of us can and should. And second, and most important about the driving around the country, it is heartbreaking to see acres and acres and acres of abandoned farmland. Or you drive into Ohio or anywhere here in Colorado, and you go and you're going to find a whole steel town that had a steel mill and a manufacturing abandoned and wrecked homes. We have homeless people. I live in New York City. It is a communist country right now. There's full evil controlling New York City, and there are homeless people everywhere. And there are these towns all over this country that if we go reinvest in our country, demand every company that is foreign right now and producing products in other countries and then sending them back here, bring their manufacturing back here, or we don't want it. You know, we don't want it. We need to. And you know, they're throwing out all this money everywhere. Well, you know what? Go start a small business. Your dreams don't have expiration dates. What did you want to do? Go out there and do it now. Go start a farm. Go start a co-op farm. Go figure out how can we rebuild our town? How can we get that steel mill back up and running? How can we get that clothing manufacturer, all these things, they're sitting out there in wreckage on purpose. America shouldn't need to import anything ever. So I just want to say thank you, everyone. Please, armed with facts and truth, they got nothing. And God won, and and we need to finish the job alongside of him. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, let's hear for the great Mel